My name's Michelle Wilkie, and I've been in Colorado for the last almost 23 years. But I was born and raised in California. My childhood was very tumultuous. There was a lot of abuse in my childhood. My father left when I was just about 9 months old, and so I didn't know he really even existed until I was 5. Met him for the first time when I was 7, and he lived in Missouri, so I didn't get to see him very much. My mom, we didn't go to church on a regular basis. She had a lot of different boyfriends, and they were all pretty abusive to me. There was sexual abuse, physical abuse, verbal abuse. I felt very neglected. And my mom and I have since, our relationship is amazing now, and she's a fantastic mother. And she did the best I think that she could. I just felt pretty invisible. And I knew, I had neighbors that took me to church and things like that a few times growing up, and I knew that God was real because I would pray as a little girl, and He would answer my prayers almost immediately. And so, but it wasn't a real close, a Christian home or anything like that. I fell into alcohol at 14. And, pubescent and angry and rebellious, and felt like, oh, nothing scared me. Fell into, I started smoking marijuana at 16. And then as my early adult life, I got into some other drugs. I always consciously yearned for a father figure. I was always a mama's girl too, but I think it's because she was my stable parent that was always there. But I always wanted a daddy, always. So the way I met the father of my first daughter, it was high school. We met in choir class. I had moved from California to Branson, Missouri. So it was a huge culture shock. And we knew each other through choir class and started dating and, hanging out. And I was 17, and I moved out of my parents' house. My mother and my father remarried when I was 16 or 17. I was a junior in high school and moved from California, my little town in Madera, where that was my whole world. Junior in high school, moved me to a whole foreign land. And I ended up loving it. But so that's how I ended up in Missouri. But I moved out of my parents' house at 17. Me and John, we got our own apartment, partied our tails off the first summer, went to a Grateful Dead concert. That's all you need to know about that. Had a crazy summer, and I got pregnant with Taylor. John and I did get married. I was 6 months pregnant with Taylor, and I knew it wasn't going to last because it was a really abusive relationship. There was a lot of physical abuse and verbal and emotional abuse. All of that was heavily involved in that relationship. I thought I could love him enough and be good enough and love enough that it would work, that he would stop getting angry and all of that, and it just never did. And my daughter, when she was about 8 or 9 months old, I had this revelation. That it was never going to stop. And I had asked him, because we had gotten into a big altercation, if he was going to go through our daughter's bedroom door when she was 14 years old and slammed her door the way he did at me when I slammed our bedroom door. He says he thought for a second and was super honest and told me, Michelle, I don't know. And I loved him still. And I said, I love you, but I love her enough to leave you. And I left, and I never went back. The way that I met my second husband, I had just moved to Colorado Springs, didn't know a lot of people. I started working at a bar. I met him through a group of girlfriends that I had made while working at this bar. I just went to their apartment. I had just gone to their apartment, girls getting ready to go out and getting dressed and stuff. And Mike happened to be there, and we just kind of hit it off. And I thought he was attractive and funny and just a really cool guy. And he ended up coming to the bar that we had gone to later, and we hit it off. We were inseparable from that day, and we were married for 10 years. Within 2 weeks, I found out I was pregnant. The bigger part of finding out that I was pregnant actually comes from my second child. So my second child, Josh, I almost didn't have him. The situation that happened with my second child, I was in a long-term relationship with a man. We had broke up. I found out I was pregnant. This was a man that I wanted nothing to do with. Nothing to do with. And I almost didn't have him. And I thought, I cried for days when I found out I was pregnant with Josh. And had talked to a girlfriend of mine who told me that she had an abortion and said it was the best thing that had ever happened to her. And it didn't sit well with me that she phrased it like that, because she had told me she wouldn't have the Jeep that she had if she'd had this baby. So I was talking with my mom the next day. That's when my mother told me that she had had an abortion right after I was born. And she always regretted it. And I never knew about it. And it would haunt her when I was a little girl. I'd always wondered, what if I had it? What if, my mom and dad had another kid? Would it look like me? And she said that it would just kill her inside because she had an abortion. And she'd always wondered if that was the son that she never got to have, because our family is full of girls, and of course my first was a girl. And she looked at me and she says, what if this is the boy that our family needs? And she was obviously broken up about, she was not healed at all from her abortion. So it had haunted her for 20 years at that point. So I still made an appointment with Planned Parenthood. And I know that there was an angel there. I get called up to the desk after I checked in, and the woman behind the desk had asked me why I was thinking about having it, why I wanted to have an abortion. And I had told her I had felt so ashamed that I had, at this point now, it wasn't my ex-husband. This was a boyfriend I'd been with for a year. And here I was 21 or 22. And I was a ready-made family with 2 babies and 2 baby daddies. What man is gonna want that? And I knew it was selfish, but that was I just felt ashamed and terrified. I was already struggling financially with me and Taylor. How was I going to handle another baby by myself? And she looked at me and she says, if a man doesn't want you, with everything you come with, you don't want that man. And I thought for a second, and I was like, that's exactly what I needed to hear. And she looked at me and she says, you got this. I looked at her and I said, you know what? You're right. I'm strong. I can do this. And I got up, I said, thank you. And I walked out, and I never looked back. And I had that baby. I went through my whole pregnancy single with a little 2-year-old. I had my beautiful son. He was the boy that we always wanted in our family. So I'm so thankful that I have him now. And now he's 22 and has a little boy. And then, so I have him. I moved to Colorado Springs. And now I have this little boy who is 10 months old, a year. And I meet Mike. Within 2 weeks, here I am again, pregnant. I was very fertile, but I was also very irresponsible. And I found myself even more petrified than I was with Josh when I found out I was pregnant with Joshua. And immediately I knew I could not have this baby. And I thought, and how am I going to give this baby up for adoption? I have 2 babies. I know the love of a mother. And I love my children. There was no way I could go through a pregnancy and give my baby away. And so, and I also knew that I couldn't take care of 3 children by myself. I didn't know that Mike was going to stick around for, we were going to get married. There was absolutely no guarantee. And I trusted nobody. So I decided to have an abortion with this baby. And so I called Planned Parenthood. I told them I had just found out and I needed to make an appointment. And so they said that I needed to wait 2 weeks before I could go in and have the procedure done. I felt like I'm going to go through torture for the next 2 weeks, knowing that I feel the symptoms of pregnancy, and I know that I'm about to end it. And so I had some words with this woman and how horrific it is that they do that to women, and make them wait. I don't know why I had to be 7 weeks old. Or why the baby had to be 7 weeks along. I wonder that now. I don't know what they do with everything. But I went ahead and made the appointment. Mike came with me. Walking in, there was like a small handful, like 5 or 6 people standing in front. They weren't aggressive like I was afraid they were going to be, holding, signs. And I don't even know what they said because I couldn't look at them. One woman, I think it was a woman, I was so stressed out. And again, I couldn't look at them. But one of the individuals came and said, do you want to see what your baby looks like? And I said, no. And we beelined it for the front door. So I get in, check in. They have us sitting in the waiting room. And for me, I was really, like, this was a hard thing for me to do. I knew what I was doing. And I'm looking around the waiting room and I'm seeing a girl right across from me doing her homework. Like, this was nothing. I saw another girl reading a book. It was nothing. And Mike and I were both shocked at that it seemed to be just a flippant thing to everybody in the waiting room except for us. Then I get called back. I was surprised that Mike couldn't come with me. I thought he would be able to be with me. And they said no. So then I was all the more scared. They had, though, already given me something to kind of relax me, and they do an ultrasound. And I'm crying already and made sure that I was faced away from the monitor. And I was visibly upset. And the woman says, "Do you want to see your baby?" I was so angry with her. I just, no. And maybe that was God trying to save that baby one last time. But I was angry. I was so mad. So they take me from the ultrasound room to a space where there was just all these different like gurneys, and they put me on a bed, and there was a doctor and there was a student with the doctor that was doing the procedure. And I asked if it was going to hurt. And they're like, no. I was concerned if I was going to feel pain. I feel so selfish about that, looking back on it. But I asked if it was going to hurt. And the doctor says, no, it's not going to hurt. And I then asked why couldn't Mike be back there with me? I needed him back there with me. And she says, no men are allowed back here for privacy reasons. We all saw each other in the waiting room. But okay, the procedure started. I was already just tears rolling down my face before it even started. But when it started, I started wailing. I started calling for Mike. And I don't know if it was because, it did hurt, or if it was because I knew that I was killing my baby. And everything in me was just crying out, and I was crying out. And I remember vaguely, I remember not vaguely, I remember the look of the student's face. I could tell that this was not a normal response. And I remember thinking, I hope she remembers this. Because I already know. I have just made the worst mistake of my life. They took me into the after recovery room, and I cried while I cried myself to sleep. Woke up. I don't know, Mike had said I was out for about an hour. Physically, I was in pain for quite a few days, and I spiraled. I just completely spiraled after that. I fell into pretty hardcore drugs, drinking pretty heavily. I still cared for my children, but not. I was there and I provided all of their needs, but I wasn't there emotionally, the best I think to my ability for that period of time. That's when my panic attacks started. I was having panic attacks so badly that I would leave an entire cart of groceries and just have to walk out because I couldn't check out. I lost a job because I had to leave because I was just panicked. I had a hard time driving because sitting at a stoplight even, I just felt this like a spotlight on me, and I felt I would get panicked. I didn't really talk about it. I didn't consult my mother. I didn't tell her for years. I just hid it. I remember one time I said, do you think God's gonna let me ever have another baby? I wonder. if I'm even going to be allowed to have another baby. I'm not completely healed.
Okay.
I'm not. I do know that I'm going to see my baby in heaven. I know it was a girl. I've named her. Her name is Hope. And I struggle because I love the name Catherine, call her Katie, right? But I also just am drawn to the name Hope also. And that's kind of been strung through my life since. I know that she isn't angry with me. I know that she's listening right now. I know that she loves me, and I love her so much. And I know that she looks a lot like her sister and brother that came after her. I had been, me and my husband at the time, had been using meth for off and on for probably almost 2 years. And I had come to a place where I just knew that if I didn't change, I was going to lose my babies. And we were in our apartment, and it was right around Christmas time. And I went outside by myself on our back patio to smoke a cigarette, and that's what I was thinking about. I have to stop. I have to change, or I'm going to lose my babies, and I could never live if I lost them. And I just looked up, and I'm like, okay, I need something bigger than myself. And that was all I said. I finished my cigarette and went to bed and asked my husband if he would be willing to try to find a church. Well, I was very excited. He was like, absolutely. So we tried a couple. We found a church that we ended up attending and being heavily involved in for 7 years. I had tried everything else that the world had. And it just led me to, I'm about to lose my babies. And depression and anxiety and all of that, anger and all of that. And so I was just going to try this, and I had decided I'm all in. Every single thing that my pastor preaches, I'm going to put that into practice. And I did. And we sat there in church for about a year, just kind of sitting and learning, and just soaking in what our pastor was teaching. And there was a women's retreat. There was a moment I saw a woman walking out of Walmart with her children and had a cart overflowing with food. And I felt like I was the worst mom because I couldn't do that for my kids because I'd already spent all my money on drugs. I had food, but it wasn't like that. And I just felt a deep shame. And so when I was able to be that mom and to have my cart overflowing, and my kids had all the snacks and all the desserts, and we had all the whole menu for the week laid out and everything we needed and then some, nothing could replace that feeling. I laid meth down cold turkey. And I heard later, people say it's harder to give up meth than heroin. I mean, I don't know. I worked in corrections for 8 years. And that's tough because you have the same revolving door, and heroin's huge, especially here, heroin and meth huge. So I don't know what's harder. It doesn't matter. I set it down and I never picked it back up. I started recognizing his voice after this women's retreat. I get sponsored to go to a women's retreat because there's no way I could afford it. From a woman that told me she just kept reaching out to me. And I was terrified to go. because I didn't really know anybody except this lady I kind of knew. Go to this retreat. And I was like, okay, God, please honor that. Honor. This is hard. Cigarettes, I didn't love them, but I certainly didn't hate them. I had been smoking. I started smoking when I was 16. So by this point, I was, I don't know, I think 26 or 7 or something. I go to this retreat. There is, on the first day, there's a woman that, after our speaker was done speaking, everybody kind of dispersed, and I'm just kind of wandering by myself. People are upstairs. Let me see what's happening. I'll just go back up there and pray or something. I go up and I see this woman who is obviously drunk in the Holy Ghost. And the other women that were there, they're like, she can't even speak English right now. Now, this is a woman who I had been drawn to. I don't know why, but I know now, but I never knew why. I just felt like drawn to this woman. And that's never happened to me before, ever in my life. But I also knew that she felt drawn to me. So it was a mutual thing. Well, this is the woman who's drunk in the Holy Ghost. And I couldn't take my eyes off of her. And so I move up, just mesmerized. Move up to the front row of chairs. And she looks at me and she says, "You want this fire, don't you?" And it was, I don't know, it wasn't her normal demeanor, but it was like, "Are you ready?" But I just kind of shook my head. Just, "Come here." And we started hugging, and she's praying, just praying in the spirit, and she's sort of shaking. And I'm like, "Okay, Father, all right, Lord, I'm just open. I'm open to whatever you have." And heat in my belly, my deep spirit man. It was just hot. And it got hotter and hotter and hotter. And then it shot right up through my head. At that moment, I flew back. I've seen people slain in the spirit, and I'm like, I don't know about that. I mean, if somebody pushes on my head, I can step back, but I'm probably not going to fall down. I flew, and it was like a floating. I think they kind of halfway caught me. But even if not, it was like I could have just floated down like a little feather. Nothing would have hurt me. But what's funny is the same thing happened to her. So we're praying, we're hugging. At the exact same moment, we both went that way. If I could go back and talk to myself again, I would say to trust yourself. Believe in yourself that you are strong enough to handle everything that life throws at you. God is always with you. He's going to bring all the right people into your life. He is going to love you no matter what. He is a perfect husband. And he will also bring you your right helpmate. Just trust him. Trust him. Trust yourself. And know that as much as you love your other babies, you are going to love this baby. You're going to love this baby. And you're going to be so thankful when you see that baby's face, that you get to hold this baby in your arms. You get to kiss this little baby's face, smell their skin. You just get to love them for the rest of your life. Right here, you don't have to wait for eternity. You get to let them hug your neck all their life and the rest of your life. So fight for your child, because your child loves you already so much. And just know that you got this.